welcome back, Ontario Landlords. Welcome to another episode here. Today's podcast, we're going to dive into what every Ontario landlord should really start thinking about. We know we've talked before about it being a business and how you should treat it as such. But the other thing is about getting involved and how we can understand and utilize the tools and the systems that are around us. We all know that the system isn't quite balanced right now. It definitely leans in the favor of the tenants. So we want to try to fix that for everybody, not to make it unbalanced in the landlord favor, but maybe just to make it a little bit more fair for everybody. I don't think anybody should have to wait months for a hearing to figure out what's going on, either not paying rent or not receiving rent, right? That's what's hard for all of us. That's definitely the biggest issue that goes on at the LTB. The biggest form that is filed, I'm sure, is for non-payment of rent. And there's different things, again, tools out there, systems that are coming, things that are changing. And we're going to talk today to a friend of mine, Kayla Andrade, who is definitely an advocate for all of us Ontario landlords out there. She has been for years. And we're going to talk to her quickly. But before I bring her on, let me just tell you a little bit about her here. She's, as I said, she's a passionate advocate, an experienced landlord consultant, an ambassador for Landlord Credit Bureau, the Front Lobby, and also Clarity Building Controls. With a results-driven approach, Kayla has successfully supported landlords across local and provincial levels, helping them navigate complex policies and changes while earning recognition for her commitment and impactful advocacy. As the founder of Ontario Landlords Watch, a grassroots organization and Facebook group that I belong to, and you should too, Kayla has built a platform that champions landlords, tenants, and taxpayers by addressing key issues in the rental housing market and advocating for balanced legislation. Starting her journey as a landlord at just 18 years old, Kayla has grown her portfolio to include multiple properties, gaining invaluable firsthand experience in the industry. Her mission is to inspire and empower private sector housing advocates in every city of Ontario to collaborate in creating fair and effective regulations that benefit all stakeholders in the housing market. So, without further ado, Kayla, hi, how are you? Welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited to be a part of the podcast, and congratulations on this podcast.
Oh, thanks so much. This is just really all about the Ontario landlords. The reason we're doing this is the same reason you do everything, and that's to make sure that the Ontario landlords are getting the information, the support, the advice, guidance that they need so they can make the proper decisions for them, their specific situation, right? So
Yeah.
um, I've brought you in here. Why don't we let you get started with what you're working on right now and what we need to discuss? Do you want to start with water billing? Is that where we should start?
Oh, well, that's how I started in this advocacy. As the city of Cambridge made landlords responsible for tenants' delinquent utility bills, and that had resulted me into connecting with a lawyer out in Toronto. We had a petition; it got drafted, but you know what happened? We got a change of power, so we have to keep ourselves very much grounded to what level of government does what. And you know what? We do have to see that the water billing had manifest not just in the water billing in Cambridge and all over the province, but it communicated the need for more assistance in the housing industry. And this petition was coming back to me from landlords and property managers saying, hey, can you help us fight the Residential Tenancy Act and the Landlord and Tenant Board? I was like, whoa, 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 like what's going on? Like, I just thought it was just water billing back in 2010. And we started to understand that the the rules are definitely in favor of the tenant. And now, because of the Landlord and Tenant Board, it has gotten a lot worse. So landlords are very, very vulnerable in Ontario, in which most landlords now are trying to bail out because of the way that the rules and regulations have tilted towards. And what Doug Ford would say is the pendulum has swung too far.
And I think the pendulum has swung the other way, especially for small landlords.
And it has. And now it's our job as landlords to understand the issues, B is to recommend solutions, And 3 is to making sure that we're communicating with the right people who are in power. And if that's going to be your MPP, is it going to be city staff? Is it going to be Doug Downey, who is the Attorney General who oversees the Landlord and Tenant Board? There's so much to unpack to what landlords now need to start doing, because it's not just the province that is out with these different type of policies that affect the housing industry. It's now your municipalities. And I don't think a lot of people know that you do have a voice and you do have a say, and we want to be able to teach people on what is happening and what they can do about it.
Right, this is the thing. Get out there and vote. Right, know what's going on, know who's advocating for what, and who we can push through on everything there. So one of the things that I started with off top of the show today was how landlords are having a hard time collecting rent today, right? This is the number one problem that the board's seeing, the landlords are dealing with. It takes months to get to the board. There's got to be something that we can do to try to speed this up. I know that we've talked before, you and I, about different things where other provinces have better systems, how people are leaving Ontario and going down to the States to invest some of their money down there, when we do need the investment to stay inside Ontario. We want the investors to stay here. Everybody needs a roof over their head. And we have to figure out a way to make it more level so that people aren't going to take their investment money out of there, because with the non-payment of rent, if it's a single-family home and that tenant's not paying rent, the landlord is 100% responsible for that mortgage, and it's very, very, very hard to do. So, is there something that you think we can do to fix this, or how are we going to get to the board, or what is Kayla's idea for change there? How can we make that a little bit better?
Well, I think from the landlord and tenant board, and having the non-payment of rent application being heard as the number one application, we have to streamline that application. It's backlogging the landlord and tenant board right now, where we have 53,000 applications currently backlogged at the landlord and tenant board, because of the fact that we have such high volume of non-payment of rent applications. So we need to streamline that. There needs to be a process in place where if you have a tenant who hasn't paid a single dollar in 6 months, like, there's no payment arrangement, there's nothing. There needs to be somewhere where there's an ex parte order where the landlord can file for that expedited hearing or that expedited order to impact that tenant. But at the same time, the landlords need to be knowing that there's different rules that need to be changed. But at the same time, we have products and services such as rent reporting. We have to make these tenants understand that not paying your rent, there's consequence. Landlords, we have consequences. We have fines from the Ministry of Housing. We have fines from the city. We have fines from the landlord and tenant board. We need to introduce consequences to tenants who want to abuse the system, and that's what we need to crack down on to make sure that we're streamlining the landlord and tenant board process of how to deal with non-payment of rent. And that's going to be rent reporting with front lobby. We have to be able to show that we're going to impact your credit if you don't pay rent on time. But rest assured, if you pay rent on time, it's going to build your credit. It's going to build that tenancy record that landlords are going to be looking for when they are doing their credit checks, to making sure that we're getting you into the right spot matched with the right landlord because you're a good tenant. So it does go both hands, but the landlord and tenant board is huge right now, just because people know that they can wait 12 months or they can wait even like longer if they know the loopholes, and they're taking advantage of it.
Yeah, I think we've all heard the term professional tenants before, right? That's what we're looking out for. We don't want anybody that we know or they're trying to take advantage from the beginning, because the system is flawed right now, and there are people out there that will take advantage of something. But there's also the people that are being affected by this who aren't trying to take advantage, whether they're landlords or whether they're tenants. Their matters should be heard a lot faster than 6 to 8 months if it's non-payment of rent, or on the tenant side, something like bugs in the unit. You know, I've heard of people having to wait months through tenants having to get something to be dealt with there when they're arguing with what needs to be done with their landlord. I like to say that all the landlords that we deal with, that I know of and everything like that, aren't in that category. But I do know that there are some out there that don't do what needs to be done, and don't fix up properties and let them be dilapidated, and don't um, jump. I shouldn't say jump, but don't act quick enough when tenants are asking for something that needs to be addressed immediately, like a bug situation, and they just think it is. But at the same time, the landlord and tenant board shouldn't be telling anybody that they can wait and not pay rent for any reason as well, right? Rent should always be paid. I don't know why people think that they can get away with not paying rent when, again, the landlord always has to pay rent, whether they're receiving, or their mortgage, whether they're receiving rent or not.
You hit it dead on the nose right there. Like, a landlord is going to the landlord and tenant board for non-payment of rent, but tenants now have an opportunity to bring maintenance concerns. Well, of course, they're going to bring any type of maintenance concerns to justify them not paying rent, but nowhere in the Residential Tenancy Act where it states that a tenant can withhold rent for no maintenance or poor maintenance. So they're not even following their own rules and process at the landlord and tenant board respectful to the Residential Tenancy Act. And knowing that tenants, if you are not getting any type of service from your landlord, not only can you file your own application, and it can be free at that most, but the tenants always have the option to contact their city bylaw, and bylaw could come in and investigate and give the landlord a time frame in order to address their behavior. So this is why it's very confusing when we start seeing other municipal policies coming in place when the provincial government already has the outline set for landlords and tenants.
As a property manager, I get a call a lot of times to help out with properties for two reasons, it seems. One, right from the beginning, the landlord, the investor doesn't want to have to deal with the day to day, doesn't know what to have to do, and just doesn't want to be involved in that way. So they bring us on right away from the beginning. The other way that we tend to get phone calls is, oh my gosh, I have a problem. How do I fix it? And then we're coming into a situation all the time where we have to deal with something that I haven't been involved with at all from the beginning, and now I'm coming in to deal with something. I can think of a couple times off the top of my head right here where once a situation is soured, a tenant is going to do whatever they can, unfortunately, um, to take advantage. They feel that it's their right, and I don't know how or why they get this. But it is not their house. It is their home, yes, but it is not their house. They don't own it. They are paying somebody else to be living there, and then to hold back rent for whatever reason, maintenance issues. The one that he was arguing about, he got the city to come in, this one property after we had taken over, and we did a full blown home inspection again to make sure that we knew everything as well. They looked through everything. The city worker came through as well to go through everything, and there were a couple of small things that needed to be fixed, and we were given a timeline, and we made sure. But you should have seen the list of the tenant, and you should have seen the list that was much smaller of what actually needed to be done. Most of it was just fabricated by something
You should
that
come see the list that I need in my house. My tenants get their stuff, but come check my
I was
house.
going to say, is that the honey-do list? That
Oh yeah, I got a clogged sink right now. It's like I can't call my landlord to come and fix it for me, right? But if the tenant's called, he's gone. He's gone, like no problem. He says I don't pay him rent, so whatever that means.
with everything that we have going on right now, we were talking quickly about some of the tools, right? We did say a little bit about front lobby and how there's screening tools involved in there, rent reporting involved in there. There's different things like open room, and Equifax is now going to be getting involved. There's talks with them, with the province, that there's going to be something that they can connect and make this tied to their actual credit. Where right now, too many, they can't enforce it. They can walk away, whether there's a payment plan or anything in place. The tenants can find a way out, and landlords are getting stuck. What we need to do is figure out how we can fix that problem a little bit so that everybody is equal there, and people are not just able to walk away from something, take advantage. So if
Well,
you out
that's
there have any great ideas, please share it with us. But no, it's a work in progress. How we can get the government to understand that they need us and we need them to make things a little bit more fair. Because with the amount of immigration coming in and the amount of people growing up from here looking to get into their own places, whether they're going to be renting or buying their first home, that causes movement everywhere. And we need the housing. We need the roofs. We don't want any more tent cities all over the place. That's for sure.
They always think that all tenants can be homeowners. And reality is they can't. And this is where the private sector comes in for those tenants that can't be homeowners. And the government, which is AKA the taxpayers, they can't afford to keep building, managing, and maintaining and subsidizing government housing. And if the government has created a rule book that has now discouraged your private investors from investing into your province, and instead it encourages them to invest in other provinces and or states or countries, you have a big red flag on your hands. This is why we're seeing such the increase in tent encampments, because of bad housing policy and mismanagement of the housing crisis. And unfortunately, like, yes, the landlord and tenant board is, potentially considering sharing their data to the credit bureaus, how they go through that is one thing, but this is where the landlords are being proactive with doing monthly rent reporting, where you can report the good debt, you can report the negative debt. You don't need an order or the tenant's consent to report a debt. And some people get very confused. I just had a video on TikTok. It has over 76,000 views. And it's like, this is not allowed. Yes, it is. Like, they can't say like good, like bad tenants should pay for this because it's ruining it for good tenants. You just have that kind of pushback. But this is where, if the government is talking about it, this is a good sign. And this is why I like this bill that's coming out called Cutting the Red Tape and Building Ontario. And you should encourage your MPP, wherever they are, whatever party they are, that you support it. So when it does come to the read.
You mentioned about not being able to, everyone being able to be a homeowner, and then you also said something about people, bad tenants, right? The professional tenants, and all the horror stories that we all hear as landlords, whether it's through the news, the media, social media, groups, friends, family, whatever it is. It's like anything. The bad news is always what travels. But 40% of our country pays rent. Okay, they're not
Yep.
all bad people. They're not all jerks. Um, but they can't afford a home. And the point is there, when we think about that, is as uh, Canadians, okay. Here's, I'm going to go back a few years when we did this study. In 2018, we did a study that we had the most people in Canada per capita out of any other country in the rest of the world who owned real estate that were under the age of 35. What
Mm-hmm.
that tells you is we made it too easy, right? There was no having to rent for a little bit to get out. People were coming out and buying their first home right out of their parents' house. A young couple has to buy $1 million home right away when they were coming out now. Depending where you are in the areas, $1 million home might just be a townhouse. But it's just how people came out instead of having that progression, right? I rented for 8 years before we bought our first house back in 2009. So I wasn't a bad tenant. You know, paid my rent on time. Of course, you had your parties when you were young and all these different types of things, but we never caused any issues. We never did anything. We were never disrespectful. So there's lots of people like myself out there, right, that were renting at that time and needed to get everything. When I was saying about the under the age of 35 that owned real estate, I don't know if you have kids and if you've ever taught them how to wash their hands when they're learning how to use the hot and the cold to get that temperature. That's how I look at our government with the housing crisis right now. They didn't know what to do, so they turned on so much cold water, everybody got in. Now they turned on so much hot water, everybody got out, and they just can't get that nice little mix of cold or hot water with what's going on with what they did with interest rates and all these different rules to try to get people to go. But really, this is all because we had too many young people buying and owning real estate too young in that process. They weren't able to go up, and that's really what I think the problem is now that we're trying to correct was an issue of almost a decade ago now when interest rates started to drop and people started to buy real estate like crazy. But it's a great thing to own real estate. It opens doors as an investor. I'll tell you time and time again, it is the best investment you can make. Of course, I'm biased, but it is the best investment that you can make. And I want to go back a little bit to Front Lobby and the credit bureau with what's going to be happening there with keeping tenants accountable and making sure that one, they're paying their rent on time. I think this is a great little feature where we can rent report now and let people know that yes, if you pay your rent on time, we can improve your credit, right? And if you don't pay it on time, we can negatively impact your credit. Um, there's the gist of it, but Kayla, I'll let you dive in a little bit deeper there if there's more to say on what they're doing with everything.
Yeah, a lot of people have questions. They think that, it's going to be time consuming. It's like, no, you create your lease, you put the tenant's information into the system. They're being reported on time and in full. every single month. It gets reported to Landlord Credit Bureau and Equifax, so it's going to be able to contribute. And the only time that the landlords are going to log in is to be able to let the system know that you're alive and that you didn't what you're reporting is accurate every 60 days, or if you have to report that debt. And that's the debt that, no, the landlords do not require the order. They do not require the tenant's consent. It's being reported in the middle of the month to report to the previous month. Tenants are getting rent reminder emails. So it's actually encouraging tenants to pay earlier. I've had landlords call me and they're like, hey, my tenant's not paying rent. And I'd be like, well, what kind of, credit did they have before they, moved in? I didn't check it. Why didn't you check it? Well, I'm not a big landlord. I didn't know I can check it. It's like, you can certainly check the tenant's credit scores and their credit reports through Front Lobby as well. So and you're not only, reporting the current tenant's debt, you can also report former tenant debt. So if you had anybody that has left you with an unpaid bill going back 6 years, you still can report them to the credit bureaus through Front Lobby. So some other companies, they have to wait for an order. Sometimes you have to wait for the tenants to pay their rent through the system to have a report. You just need to have your lease with a tenant. Now, you can't report damages unless you have the tenant's order on the damages, because damages can fluctuate, but you do have the opportunity to report the unpaid rent and utilities to Front Lobby to have your tenants being held accountable and rewarded. And this also encourages you on your rental ad, telling people right on your rental ad that you do monthly rent reporting. This is going to discourage the professional tenants from wanting to even come and look at your place. And it can also attract the good tenants to just want to get that high credit score that is going to put them in that area where the banks will look at them, and that it looks very appealing that they're able to make those payments on time, and also just improve their tenancy record just in case they ever wanted to relocate to a different rental unit. So it's a win-win for the good landlords and the good tenants. And if anyone has anything negative to say about it, we have to question who they are. Right. And this is where we'll pay $186 for a filing fee. So $239 for a year to report on 20 leases. And that could be 5 people on one lease. You still have 20 leases. It's a no-brainer. Every landlord needs to be a part of this if we do want to crack down on these professional tenants who are out there looking for that victim, that next victim.
I like the way you said that. I'm going to just continue off there with Front Lobby. It can be used as individual landlords. It's something that our property management uses to protect all of our landlords, so it can be used that way as well. But again, this is helping to avoid those professional tenants, right? The ones that are out there taking advantage on purpose. Sometimes life happens, shit goes wrong, and we have to, and it is what it is. But people that are purposely out there trying to take advantage of you, they are like thieves, okay? This is the analogy I'm going to give. A thief breaks into a house when you're on vacation, not when the whole family is home having dinner, right? They want the easiest access. They want the easiest way to get away. They don't want to have to work hard at all. That's why they're running around stealing other people's stuff. Same thing
Yep.
with a professional tenant, as we call them. They're looking at finding, the Mr. and Mrs. Smith that put their house up on Facebook that aren't really
Pictures. They didn't put pictures.
right. Anything that it is, just to try to see that they're, I don't want to say not a professional landlord, but a lot of landlords do it just to buy a house, to rent it out, because they're thinking about this being their retirement plan, and they don't realize all the complications that come with it, all the responsibilities and everything like that. Once a tenant is in, they are in. It is very hard to get them out unless they choose to leave. So you have to be very careful when selecting a tenant. We're going to dive into that topic a little bit deeper another day about tenant screening. We're going to dive into Front Lobby again deeper, and the Landlord Credit Bureau, just so we can get you the full aspect of that as well. But
We'll get the team from Front Lobby coming on so they can be like a nice introduction to giving you more information that I don't even have right now.
perfect. We will definitely have somebody from Front Lobby join us so that we can get all the nitty gritty and share everything with you. But I'm going to say that's perfect for today. I think this is a nice little length of an episode. I hope you guys got a little bit of information today about how we need to be involved with what's going on in our individual municipalities or wherever you're investing. Some people invest outside of the municipality that they live in, but it's about being active. It's about being informed, being aware. And if you're unsure, people like Kayla, myself, we're here to help in any way that we can. If you're not a member of the Ontario Landlords Watch Facebook group, find it, join it. There's a lot of good stuff that goes on in there, a lot of great information. And yeah, Kayla and I are always here to make sure landlords are getting the information that they need so that they can continue to invest in Ontario and not go elsewhere.
Well said. Education is the key to any successful business, and landlords need to know that there's a lot of education that they need now, while there's not a problem, because they spend so much time and money and effort to learning how to deal with the problem. Let's get the education to you before that problem arises so that it can actually just not be a problem from the get-go. So making sure that everyone's connected to each other, because we are a community and we need to strengthen this community.
And there you go. That is the perfect ending. We're going to end on that. Thanks so much for joining us today, Kayla. Thanks so much to everybody out there listening, and we will talk to you soon. Bye for now. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us this week. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're finding it informative and useful, make sure to like, subscribe, share with a friend so that we can keep getting the information out there to Ontario landlords. And keep on joining us. We'll see you next time.